Welcome to the Walt'sFootball.com podcast. This is episode 297. We're doing our Week 5 NFL picks against the spread. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News, who is red hot with his picks. Jacob, how are you and how's your Week 4?
I'm doing pretty good. My week 4 was good, but it also was somewhat disappointing. I dropped the last 3 games of the week, so I ended up going 9-5-1 on the week. Couldn't get to 10 wins, at least for fourth straight week. That said, the fact that I'm disappointed about a 9-5-1 week is a pretty good thing. So I will take that. I'll try to bounce back in prime time. This week, I had been 10-1 going into prime time before Sunday night, or 9-1 in my first 10. So hopefully we'll bounce back in that regard a little bit. But I didn't like the lines last week, so getting 9 is pretty good. So we'll see where I'm going. But how did you do last week?
Yeah, so 6-7-2 on the closing lines. But if we use the lines we used on the show, I went 8-7. So whatever. It wasn't a good week. Made some mistakes, but I was like you. I didn't really like the lines all that much. There are some lines this week I like a lot more. There are a couple that make no sense to me at all. So we'll discuss them. Hopefully, we'll be on the same side in those 2 games. We get this comment saying bye Bill O'Brien. Before we get to our picks, real quick, any reactions to the Bill O'Brien firing?
Yeah, I mean, it had to happen. I know there's been some people saying oh, why did they do it now? Why did they let him ruin the organization and not let him at least see this phase of the thing through? And I'm like, well, first of all, they trusted him too long. They should have gotten rid of him before giving him all this power. Second of all, they needed to just kind of, even without any resources moving forward, because he traded all the draft picks, they needed to get him out before he did more damage and possibly traded Deshaun Watson or something crazy like that. They just needed a reset there. So obviously the exact right move by the Texans. They could have made it at any time and I would have supported it. At this point, they're going to be a tough rebuild. They do have some talent, but they're going to have to really rebuild up on the defensive side of the ball, particularly in the front 7. I think they need some work. They're really bad against the run. I'm expecting they'll probably hire an offensive-minded head coach. A lot of people say Eric Bieniemy will be on there. Josh McDaniels has some ties to that organization, though, too, so keep an eye on him. Jack Easterby being kind of the man in charge there might like him. I wouldn't mind seeing a defensive-minded head coach go there, too. I'm a big Robert Saleh fan from the 49ers, so I'd say Bieniemy, Saleh, and McDaniels are the 3 names to watch there right now, but unequivocally the right move by Houston.
Yeah, I think those are great names. I saw Adam Gase being mentioned, but that was a troll post, so I got a good kick out of that. This move should have been made years ago. Bill O'Brien, he fired one of the best scouting departments in the NFL. He fired Rick Smith, who was a great GM. He made all these bad trades. They don't have a first-round pick because they traded 2 first-round picks for Laramie Tunsil. So no matter how poorly they do, they don't get to benefit from it. So it's just awful. It's a great move. I gave it an A+++++++++. A+ is because of all the bad moves Bill O'Brien has made over the years. All right, let's get to the picks. There are 15 games this week. The Packers and the Lions are on bye. 2 games don't have lines posted at the moment. Actually, 3 games. So we'll get to those in a bit. But starting with the first game, Buccaneers at the Bears on Thursday Night Football. It's finally a great game after that Broncos Jets disaster that we saw last week. So the Buccaneers open up -3. This line went up to 6, and now it's back down to 4.5. So it looks like some sharp money on the Bears. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I when I looked at the spread, it was 5.5. So I actually liked the Bears at that number, solely because the Bucs are banged up. All 4 of their top receivers didn't practice today, which technically I think it was either a very light walkthrough or a simulated practice today, so it doesn't really matter. But between those guys being hurt, LaShawn McCoy likely missing this game, and Leonard Fournette being a game-time decision, that offense is pretty banged up in Tampa. I think that they're going to have a chance to win this game, but I'm not convinced that they'll be able to hold off the Bears if they're missing that many personnel, because the Bears defense is pretty solid. They just held the Colts to 19 points, and they kind of kept themselves in it late, at least on the defensive side of the ball. They drove down for the first time on offense. Nick Foles didn't do well against the Indy defense. I know that the Tampa defense is also strong, but I don't think they're quite as good as Indy. And I think the receivers on the Bears could at least have a chance to win against the Tampa corners because they're pretty young, and that's the weakness of this defense. So I like the Bears to keep this close because it's a short week. It's at home. It's in colder weather, and the Bucs are banged up. So I think all of those things go in favor of the Bears. I do think Tampa wins. At 4.5, I probably like the Bears. It would be a no bet if this wasn't prime time. I'd probably put a unit on the Bears otherwise. I'm not in love with this game, and you could convince me to go with the more talented team on Thursday night, but I do think the Bears would have a chance to cover because there's just so many factors that tilt it slightly in their favor.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the Buccaneers because they're the better team playing on a Thursday night. I that's usually my rule is if I think a team is going to be completely focused and they're the better team on Thursday night, I usually pick them to cover because they don't have any time to prepare. So it's going to be the better talent that wins out. And I think the Buccaneers have better talent. Obviously the Bears have a great defense, but their offense was just so bad last week. Even Kenny texted me during I think yesterday and said he said I think Nick Foles is a terrible quarterback, and Kenny is the biggest supporter of Nick Foles there is out there, and maybe in the entire universe, even more so than Nick Foles' parents. So to hear that from Kenny was very discouraging. And then I watched the game, and Foles is terrible. But then again, he can be great at times. So we'll see which Foles we get. But I like the Buccaneers right now because they're the better team. But what you were saying about the receivers makes a lot of sense. So if Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are out, I think I would probably switch to the Bears. I think Mike Evans is going to play though, even though he didn't practice. So that's my gut feeling about it. I have nothing to back that up with, but yeah, if we see the inactives and both Godwin and Evans are out, I'm going to switch to the Bears.
Yeah, and I do think Mike Evans will play as well. I was just kind of amazed that their top 4 receivers on the depth chart all didn't practice today. Like you don't see that outside of the Eagles this year, but I have no qualm with the Buccaneers too. Like this is one of those games where you could truly make an argument for either side, and I'd be fine with it. There's just something for me about trusting cold weather Tom Brady. It doesn't always work too well in the first cold weather game of the year. But, he's still Tom Brady, and he threw 5 touchdown passes last year. So I see the side you're on. I might change to the Buccaneers come Thursday. We'll see what ends up happening. But, yeah, this would definitely be a no bet for me if it wasn't Thursday. But I'm 4-0 on Thursday night, so I'm going to stick with the Bears for now. And let's see if I can go to 5-0 and keep this insane Thursday streak going. Nice.
It's funny that we're both talking about switching picks, even though we're on opposite sides. It's funny. The grass is always green, right?
Right.
So this question, is this the first time Brady versus Foles since the Super Bowl? I believe it is, right?
Yes, I believe it is. I wrote that on sportingnews.com today, so I hope it's right. Otherwise, I'm going to have to change that everywhere I wrote it. But yeah, this is their first rematch, and they're both on different teams, which is fascinating. I wonder if we've ever seen like 2 quarterbacks beat in the Super Bowl, and then when they meet next, they're both on different teams. I wonder if that's ever happened.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, usually, obviously, the winning Super Bowl quarterbacks don't change teams. So yeah, it would be a rare occurrence, but I do wonder if that happened. So yeah, we'll figure that out. We'll see what the injury report says, and we might change our picks. Both of us might change our picks. So before we get to the Sunday games, please hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. That'd help us out a lot. Hit the like button, the notification bell. Send this out to someone who might like football. So yeah, that would help us out quite a bit.